But we begin tonight with the fate of Donald Trump and his legal and political future, resting with the 9 members of the highest court in the land. Today, special counsel Jack Smith responded to Trump's request that the Supreme Court reject a fast-tracked consideration of his presidential immunity defense in his federal election interference case. Smith wrote, "The public interest in a prompt resolution of this case favors an immediate, definitive decision by this court. The charges here are of the utmost gravity. The case involves, for the first time in our nation's history, criminal charges against a former president based on his actions while in office. And not just any actions, alleged acts to perpetuate himself in power by frustrating the constitutionally prescribed process for certifying the lawful winner of an election. A decision on whether the Supreme Court takes up the case could come at any moment. Also expected to land on the court's doorstep is Trump's appeal of this week's bombshell decision by the Colorado Supreme Court to kick Trump off the state's primary ballot. It is the first state to rule that, pursuant to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, Trump is disqualified from being president for his role in the January 6th insurrection. A decision on the appeal by the Supreme Court could have a profound impact on the other states where Trump's ballot eligibility faces a challenge. One impact already being felt as a result of the Colorado decision is the flood of threats aimed at Supreme Court justices via social media, including on many pro-Trump forums. NBC News has exclusively obtained a report from the nonprofit group Advance Democracy that identified, quote, significant violent rhetoric, often in direct response to Trump's Truth Social posts on the decision. They include death threats like this post on a fringe website, which reads, "Kill judges, behead judges, roundhouse kick a judge into the concrete." Another said, "This ends when we kill these effers." Some posts also included the justices' email addresses, phone numbers, and office addresses. Sadly, it is an all too familiar pattern that gets repeated each time the twice impeached, 4 times indicted, civilly liable for sexual abuse and defamation former president is faced with the legal consequences of his own actions. I have a great panel for the hour tonight. Michael Beschloss, NBC News presidential historian, Paul Butler, former federal prosecutor, Georgetown law professor, and an MSNBC legal analyst, Aaron Haynes, editor-at-large for the 19th and an MSNBC political contributor, and David Jolly, former Republican congressman who is no longer, for some reason we cannot discern, affiliated with the party. This is like a friends and family night. It is so great to have all of you here, and these 2 gentlemen here with me at the table. Happy holidays to all.
You too.
The happies and scare quotes, though, this year. It's been a rough year. It's a difficult year, and we're sort of rounding it down this year. But I want to start with you, Paul, on these threats. Are these threats legally actionable? I just want to, Colorado Supreme Court justices, read a little bit more. This is one more of the threats that, after disqualifying Donald Trump from the ballot, some of these Colorado justices got. What do you call 7 justices from the Colorado Supreme Court at the bottom of the ocean? Asked another user, a good start. Post noted a variety of methods that could be used to kill those perceived as Trump's enemies. Hollow point bullets, rifles, rope, bombs. Can people go to jail for doing that?
They can, depending on the context. This year, the country's getting a crash course in First Amendment jurisprudence. You can say a whole lot, but when you cross the line to threats, when there's an actionable danger of putting someone's life or health at risk, you can be prosecuted.
And let me ask you this, as a former prosecutor, I mean, it's part of your job to prosecute scary people, people who've got friends that are bad people. Does this, to you, read as a higher level of threat for prosecutors, judges, even clerks?
It certainly does. So, you know, when you're a prosecutor, you know that people aren't going to like some of what you do. So you rely on security, but you also rely on law, what's called deterrence. So one reason these cases have to be investigated and prosecuted, because if they're not, it will open the door. We're devolving into this dangerous lawlessness in this country where a lot of people are questioning the legitimacy of courts. So this is really the time for prosecutors to step up, to do their job, to make sure that judges prosecutors, defense attorneys, and witnesses are safe.
Absolutely. And Michael, this is happening at a time when the Supreme Court, I mean, I cannot think of a more momentous set of cases that are coming before them. They've got to decide basic issues of whether a president can commit crimes, attempt a coup, have presidential immunity for anything he would do that would assume any kind of crime. Talk about the position that they're in, because they're not exactly held in high esteem at this moment.
For some reason, they are not held in high esteem. And one of the reasons is that Donald Trump appointed 1/3 of them.
Yeah.
The first one was a stolen seat that was stolen from Barack Obama, who should have been able to fill it. Republicans in the Senate did not let him. The second went to Brett Kavanaugh, over whom there are still clouds. And the third one went to Amy Coney Barrett, which she was sworn in as people were actually voting in the election of 2020. You know, that's a case where a president should have said, I'm going to wait at least until after the election to see if I'm reelected.
Yeah.
So that does not exactly add to the legitimacy of the court. And so layered on top of all of this is the fact that oftentimes in history, the Supreme Court takes a long time, which obviously that's what Donald Trump wants. But they rise to the occasion when it's important. We talked about this the other night. 1974, prosecutors were licensed to say that Nixon should give up his secret presidential tapes. It went quickly to the Supreme Court. They made a ruling. Tapes were open. Nixon had to resign.
Yeah.
Year 2000, recount in Florida. You know, George W. Bush was ahead by 537 votes by one recount. There was a suit to stop the recount. The 5 conservatives voted to hand Bush the presidency effectively. The 4 progressives did not. Those are 2 of the moments that tell us the Supreme Court at its best and at its worst.
Yeah, and Sandra Day O'Connor recently lay in state she was one of those 5, and they got a Republican outcome.
She regretted it later on, by the way. I talked to her about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would imagine that she might have, because the Supreme Court's not supposed to pick the president.
Sure.
Right? That's not the way it's supposed to work. And Aaron, you know, it strikes me that the other thing that's unique about this moment is that Donald Trump faces a peril that is uniquely centered around the disposition of justice by black women. You know, the judge in his D.C. case, the prosecutor in the state of Georgia, the New York attorney general. And he is using that as a way to declare the entire process to be reverse racism and to then pivot to the kind of open racism that used to be completely unacceptable in politics, but now he's doing it because of the way that the people prosecute him look, namely like you and me.
Absolutely, Joy. And I would add to that list, Shay and Ms. Ruby, who just were able to hold Rudy Giuliani accountable.
Yep.
But who he was also, demonizing and attempting to criminalize in his perpetuation of the big lie. And so, yes, you do have multiple black women attempting to hold him accountable for, the big lie and also his activities on January the 6th, and him using that to do exactly as you said, to try to claim that he is actually the victim and that he is actually a victim of all things racism and voter fraud. So, I think what's interesting is this Colorado case, which you said he's expected to appeal, is yet another way that he's going to attempt to say, look, I'm being persecuted here. You all should continue to rally around me. This is just further proof that I'm being persecuted. And also, I mean, just to Paul's point, this is a reminder of the political violence that is still looming as we head into 2024. And you have these judges, you have prosecutors that are trying to kind of muzzle the kind of rhetoric that the former president has been using as a deterrent, but it's certainly not deterring his supporters, who are also making now these threats against the Colorado Supreme Court judges. So, all of this is certainly not something that is deterring him from his behavior and his continued kind of allegations that he is the victim here and that race is absolutely a part of that.